This is a special episode by e-Estonia Briefing Center. Now, there has been a very big discussion about eIDs and the debate has been quite heated. So we have invited here the CIO of Estonia, Lauri Luht, and a British Estonian, Adam Rang, who worked for Estonian e-Residency in its early days. So I hope this discussion offers inspiration and a lot of food for thought for the listeners. And just to start off, this is a question for both of you. What was your reaction when you heard the announcement that the UK is also trying to adopt eID?
Who's going to be first? Me?
I mean...
Super. Wonderful and brilliant.
Yeah, I think it took a lot of us by surprise in Estonia, and actually also in the UK, people working on digital IDs who really want the government to go for digital IDs. They were also surprised when the government went for this. Initially the focus was on right to work and a bit different to what we're used to in Estonia, but over time you can see the government's it seems to be a lot more in line with kind of Estonian style messaging as well. But I think this is really just the very beginning of the debate in the UK, so it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves.
Now, in the UK, one of the biggest fears is a single government database that holds all of the information together. So maybe, Lauri, can you explain how Estonia's system avoids this and still works seamlessly for the citizens? It seems like there are multiple misconceptions about this.
Yeah, well, a single database which can be accessible by everyone, and there are no any kind of security layers they're implemented, then of course it would be something to avoid. But running and then exchanging data through the data exchange layer and taking the right information and combining it with other right information together is actually the way to do it. It's hard to say that there should be 1,000 different databases or a couple of. That depends on the business model already. But anyway, it's not only digital. It's also going together with the security. So, and this is the risk management that needs to be done together with the management of the whole of data, and then the digital services and then the electronic IDs and everything.
So it's more complex than that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Now, the other fear is that a digital ID would let the government track its citizens. Adam, this is more a question for you. Based on your experience here in Estonia, how would you respond to this? And maybe, Lauri, you can add on to this. How does Estonia ensure that not even the government can access all of the data?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been watching a lot of the news coverage of digital ID in the UK, and sometimes it is framed as a trade-off between either privacy or convenience. So I think it's really important to clarify, those of us who have long had digital IDs and who like digital IDs, we also really like privacy, and the digital ID can be a big contributor to that. I think for me, the starkest example comes to probably managing health. So, your health records are probably the most sensitive data that the state looks after for you. What you say to your doctor is something, you really want to keep confidential. In the UK, I don't really know how my records are secured or who's looking at them. In Estonia, with the e-health system, I can see, obviously, which medical professionals access them. In addition to the fact that it's just so much more easier and intuitive to use the e-health system. So that really builds trust for me. Of course, there's been a few incidents in Estonia when people have had to go to court for looking at data inappropriately. There was a medical professional who looked up someone's records and the person noticed it and they challenged it. And then they had to answer before a judge. So that kind of thing does build up trust in the system. I think for most Brits, they're not really thinking about health records and that kind of thing. They're probably thinking about kind of daily usage, in the supermarket. I've heard some people talk about is the government going to track how much junk food I eat, or is it going to tell me, no, you've had too many beers this week, you can't buy any more from the supermarket? I guess the other thing to clarify is that even if a private company like a supermarket uses the digital ID as a login or like for the loyalty card, it doesn't mean that your shopping purchases are going to go to the government. So my doctor doesn't know how much junk food I put in my shopping basket. And so that's why it's really important to have that public discussion about what should the rules be, about how the digital ID is governed. And yes, I hope like everyone in the UK gets involved in that debate and talks about where they want to set the limits for how data transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the norms in the physical world also apply to the digital world. That's the first principle we should be keeping in mind. But even more, I would say, because the question is about when I'm looking in Estonia, then we do run those consent services. We are running the data trackers, etc. Now, my question is how we are running the data tracker if the information is only on paper. Then how do we register that someone has looked at my data? That would be nearly impossible, actually. So, and then understand we actually give the digital world, or we require the digital world to fulfill much higher standards than the physical world. And well, I just wanted to present one use case. We are going to talk probably also the wallets and digital wallets and stuff. But now imagine if there is a use case of we would like to people assure that when they're buying alcohol, for instance, that they only confirm their age via some QR code or application. And we make a restriction that not the name would be shared with the shop or the exact date of birth or whatever document information. Then in the physical world, you would actually show the whole of document, and you would disclose way more data than with the solutions, the digital solutions as such. Now, let's say the point here is that we require more from the digital domain than from the physical domain. Nevertheless, we don't realize that actually doing things digital is way more traceable and way more assuring for me as a holder of my data than just running the process on paper. And it of course boils down to trust, but every democratic government has their own tools how to operate and make sure that the privacy is respected, etc. So this is something what we just need to also demonstrate for our people, that there is a data tracker installed, there is no misuse of the data, and then there is a clarity, there is also transparency ensured for the people, and that's how we do it in Estonia, which gives a good opportunity for every other nations also to implement those tools and processes which which make the services trustable for the people.
What's incredible is that our driving licenses in the UK even have our home address on them, and that's what we use to show that we're over 18. So if you're going to go to a club or a bar, you have to show you're over 18. You even show your home address to the bouncer, and then they ask us kind of like, oh, but aren't you giving away too much data with your digital ID? It's like, no.
Well, we could go to this conversation with lots of private services, what people are using all over the internet and just clicking on different links and just take all my private data. I want to get this, whatever private service. But that's not the right way to approach it. But anyway, I very much like your example on the physical documents versus electronic documents, and I would say that doing business via digital means is way more secure actually and traceable than with only on physical and on paper registries.
I would add on to this that an important principle that plays a huge role is the notion that here people are considered the owners of their data. So we're using our eID also as a tool of consent for someone else to actually get access to the data. So this is also something that might be considered in the UK, I guess. I would like to hear, Adam, do you maybe have some personal experiences or examples how eID has unexpectedly made your life more convenient, and what difference these services make in the daily life?
Yeah, so I guess for me, 90% of my digital ID use is banking. It is so much more convenient to whenever you're moving money around, and actually also signing contracts. And actually, one thing to point out there is that it's not just easier when you have a digital ID, but also when everyone else around you has a digital ID. So if your neighbors have a digital ID, your employer has a digital ID, it's so much easier for making agreements and these kind of things. And then I guess, I use my digital ID with a lot of private services as well. Government services, we could talk endlessly about how government services are better with logging in with digital ID. But actually, the good thing is that also with digital services, you can make them more intuitive. So actually, you don't have to log in. Like a lot of that work can be done invisibly for you, and the digital ID can help design more intuitive services. I think, the best example is when you have a baby in Estonia, and instead of having to kind of fill out endless paperwork and have to apply for different things like benefits, the state should already know that your baby is born, and some of those things should start working automatically for you.
Which is what happens here, yeah. Mm-hmm. So you will be just offered, do you want those parental leave benefits, and you either consent and say, yes, I want, and all of this information is confirmed, or I decline this. But I would say that going digital and experiencing cyber threats goes hand in hand. So maybe Lauri, can you add what lessons did Estonia learn in its early years with the cyber attacks that we've faced?
Well, of course, it's about. I have quite a background in security, so there are many lessons, of course, coming from the past and also looking in the future. It's not going to get any simpler. That's for sure. Well, if you look on the privacy, then actually the learning point of having the logging mechanism there, the information security, the consent service, or the, let's say, other tools ensuring the privacy are important. But again, it's not about prevention. I think that's the most important message about the security. You can't prevent everything very serious that could happen, or you can't prevent, let's say, you can't prevent all incidents. The question is about your risk management. The question is about the risk-based approach. The question is about your preparedness of what you do when something happens and how you mitigate. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been a very big effort in Estonia to understand that being only ISO compliant doesn't actually ensure 100% of security, but you have to have also mitigation process and the preparedness process behind all the digital systems. And this is how we also demonstrate in a sustainable way the digital resilience and the digital security for the public. So there are, let's say, lots and lots of security aspects implemented in our digital domain. But as I've been, worked in security, I would say that the prevention isn't everything. You have to also prepare and know how to respond if something happens. So you need to model, and you need to, like in physical, there is no difference. Mm-hmm. From the physical world. In the physical world also things go wrong. And then the question of the resilience lies on your ability, how to respond quickly and to the mitigation.
Can you give us one or two examples how we are preparing for the cyber attacks that eventually will happen? Well,
on let's say, it's a multi-layer or preparedness, actually. When we go to the, let's say, personal level, then it's about every person's obligation to have certain cyber hygiene, let's say, implemented. That you don't share your passwords around the internet, and then this basic stuff, actually, which are funny if I bring out the examples here, But if you look at the real-time incidents, then you see that actually people do those mistakes on a very basic level, and that's how it is. And everything that goes wrong actually starts with elementary mistakes anyway. But I don't accuse the user. I'm not the person who says that it's all the user's blame and that it's only the users who should be being careful and should do all the, let's say, that we should put all the response on the users. No, there is also the organizational layer. So every organization needs to keep their processes secure, needs to make sure that there are information security implemented in the organization, that there is segmentation, there are, let's say, different measures that should be done in the information security layers, in the systems and also in the business processes. I very much loved. I still quote on that time she was the CISO of Cisco. That's a fun way to say. But back in 2020 at the RSA conference, she told that if the user clicks on the link and your system collapses, then you as a CISO should be also looking in the mirror. So that's not the right way to blame only the users if something goes wrong. There are organizational, procedural things that should be also encountered. And also on the national level, if let's say on the personal hygiene, it's clear, and in every organization needs to ensure the security of its processes. Then on the national level, we need to make sure that the critical infrastructure, there is an environment, there is a security culture, let's say, and policies and frameworks that should be obliged, like also in the physical domain, like any kind of security domain on the streets, riding with a car, you have speed limits, etc. And then if you break them, you get fined. Simple as that. So anyway, it's on multi-level responsibility, and it's not only to be put on the user. It's about the organizations and also the national responsibility to build the frameworks and to encourage and then to implement this kind of approach across the nation, security approach.
Now, Adam, you have a background in PR, so this question is aimed at you. What do you think? How has Estonia's approach to digital identity influenced our international reputation and the soft power?
Yeah, it's interesting because, so growing up in the UK, people knew I come from an Estonian family, but most people knew almost nothing about Estonia. And actually, when Estonia started to get mentioned more in the media, it was always about kind of issues relating to security, geopolitics, joining the EU and NATO and all this. And I distinctly remember the point at which it switched to people sending me articles about Estonia as a digital country, and also sending me articles about they just heard TransferWise being interviewed and wow, this is an amazing company from Estonia. And I saw how the conversation changed over the last couple of decades or so. It's good to get away from those past stereotypes, now that bubble of only talking about security and being able to talk about all the positive things here in Estonia. And people are still amazed by e-Estonia. I know in Estonia, a lot of us are kind of bored talking about digital solutions, and we have high standards. We expect them to keep getting better. So sometimes people are they ask me, isn't the world a bit bored hearing about e-Estonia? But then no, actually, when you see that so many people haven't heard about it yet, and their reaction to seeing how things work here, and they're still amazed. And I know certainly when Estonians go live abroad and then come back to Estonia, they realize we actually are still really advanced here. And then of course with our community of e-residents, that's been the most amazing when it comes to soft power. We can talk about all the economic benefits that e-residents bring. They've really boosted kind of trade and connections, but they are also a really powerful community of friends around the world who learn about Estonia and speak up for Estonia. They learn about our history. Some of them even learn Estonian. I know one guy, an American e-resident living in Korea. He's never lived in Estonia before, but he learns Estonian. He speaks Estonian better than I do, I'm ashamed to say. And that's really amazing. So it's been digital ID in general and e-solutions. They continue to amaze people around the world, and they continue to bring value to people around the world. I always say the more people that can find us on the map, the less likely we are to ever be wiped off the map. So that's really important, that community of friends.
For those who don't know, could you briefly explain what is e-Residency?
Yeah, so we have a great business environment here in Estonia. We access it through the digital ID. So as Estonians, we already run companies, for example, entirely online from anywhere, wherever we are in the world. So about 10 years ago, someone came up with a bright idea, like, why do we restrict that to citizens and residents of Estonia? What happens if we gave out digital ID cards to other people around the world to apply for them? Because they too could run a company entirely online. It would be an Estonian company, an EU company. And for some people, it brings very specific benefits if they need access to the EU business environment or just our kind of low bureaucracy business environment. If there's lots of rules or barriers where they're operating at the moment, they can use our business environment online from anywhere. And we always had this vision that, countries would compete for e-residence. And we do see other countries developing their own versions of e-residency. And hey, you never know, with like digital ID in the UK, that's one thing they could start thinking about. Maybe there could be a UK e-residency program as well.
I'd hope so, because this is the potential. If you have an electronic ID, then you can extend it even further. Now, some worry that technology in general reduces privacy. I mean, Lauri, what are your thoughts on this? Has digitalization in Estonia decreased the personal freedom of people?
I think that has increased actually the online participation in the democratic processes. I really believe that digital solutions actually really broaden the opportunities, and it's not a competition between security versus
privacy?
No, that's not only privacy, but even convenience. I don't see controversy there, and the point is that when going digital, you can engage way more people. You can approach way more people, and you're more heard, etc. The question is about that. What's the message you would want to give, and there are. Okay, I don't go there, but anyway, that's the point is that it actually, I think digitalization really increases the level of democracy in the society, because it gives such wonderful more opportunities for people who might not be heard because they're physically located elsewhere. Let's say either in other country. For instance, one of the most simple example is that you can participate in online voting, or parliament voting, or local government voting, even if you are not physically in Estonian. Of course, you need to be an Estonian citizen to be able to vote online for the parliament, etc. But anyway, so I think that this actually increases the level of democracy, and I don't see that when going online, it somehow reduces any kind of liberties or any kind of opportunities. Vice versa, there are way more opportunities you will get as a citizen, entrepreneur, whatever role you are taking.
Mm-hmm. Let's start from the time that is freed, when you don't have to wait on a phone line or in a physical line somewhere, in a physical office, getting the free time that you can then spend on either starting your own company, spending it with your family and friends. I would say this is already a very big benefit. But speaking of business, I mean, some worry in the UK that private innovation will be squeezed out when electronic IDs will be introduced. So I think this is more aimed at you, Adam. Do you see a way for eID to support the private sector instead?
Yeah, so there's the UK has an emerging digital ID sector, and some of them have voiced their concerns that what's going to happen if there's a state digital ID as well. But actually, we see in Estonia that we have a thriving digital ID sector here, a very large one. We have some companies offering a complete alternative login method. We have one digital ID company, Verif, is about the same size as the entire digital ID sector in the UK. So the digital ID sector can be boosted by the government going ahead with it as well. But then there's huge opportunities for private companies, not just in the digital ID sector. There's opportunities for all private companies to redesign services around the digital ID. So for me, like if I have a choice between two companies, one of them's integrated digital ID, and one of them hasn't, I'll always go for the one that's integrated digital ID. I had that choice just the other day, actually. I was buying a domain. I buy lots of domains for websites, I checked if the domain is available, so I did it on like a big international website, GoDaddy. And then it asked me to log in, and I realized there's all these different options for logging in. And I thought, I can't remember which one I logged in last time. Like, I've bought domains before, I can't remember where they're stored. And then I thought, like, but I should just use a company that's integrated Digital ID, because then I know I've got much more control over that domain. And so I used an Estonian company instead. But yeah, I would love to see more of the private sector around the world introduce a Digital ID and make it easier for us to control things like that.
You can take even a step behind, let's say, even without the Digital ID, let's go even more simple. Let's say, whose service would you actually use? Let's say, if you don't know exactly who provides you let's say, the best service in the market, if you're not knowledgeable enough. Now, would you choose the company who doesn't have any information online, or a company who has actually very clearly advertised and then put the price list and etc. online? So, and that's for convenience. Okay, the other might be good, but if you don't find the information online, you're just not there.
Yeah.
So.
Lauri, if you had to give one piece of advice to British policymakers starting their digital ID journey, what would it be?
Well, I start a little bit more far behind or from the past. I've been always a fond believer that the digitalization should create a situation whereas me as a private person or entrepreneur, or let's say the vision in Estonia has been, and then I really share that, is that the less time in my life I should be using, or even in some cases wasting, with the interaction with the government. So that's the point. It's not the point of digitalizing services, and I'm not talking about the UA now, this example, but I just give a blunt example on that. The point is to reduce the use of time and to make my life more efficient. So the digitalization should bring me to some extent of added value in my other roles. Ideally, and my ideal personally is that I would really not like to use any time in my life with the interaction of the government. That would be just super, but everything goes, automatically and then in a secure way, and somehow it's done, I don't know, through my digital twin or with some agents helping me. I would be really happy for that. And so my message is that everyone who does with the digitalization, don't forget that it's a mean to have a better and actually to have a better life. So automatization and optimization are actually the keywords of the digitalization. You can start with putting some physical services online, but eventually we should always be encouraged by the drive to reduce the processes, really to reduce to an optimal minimum. So that's my advice to my own country and also to elsewhere, to others.
But to a country that is starting this journey, what do you think? What should be the first service connected to the eID?
Well, this depends very much on the different countries. There is no such thing as digitalization in the box that there is a right way. We started with what? We started with parking. That was the first digital service 25 years ago or something. And then at some point we reached to the tax service, and that was actually the big, that was a big game changer when people understood that they can really do the taxes in 2 minutes, and it hasn't been changed. Okay, we have reduced it 1.5 minutes maybe, but anyway, good enough, let's say, or in many cases even not the need to to log in and do the tax because some processes are already automatic anyway. So I always thought that depends on the different culture and the needs of a specific country and society, what they value the most, and finding it is actually the key. If you find something which is cherished by people and who really get the value and the benefit of getting their life more simpler in a secure and transparent way, of course, then that's the way to do it. But I can't say that the UK should be taking exactly this or that service as a first look. There might be one option. Look at the physical service. What makes people most irritated? Let's say
really more, that.
and then this might be the option and the opportunity to use in digitalization. And
and it benefits both ways. I mean, we in this briefing center we have guests from many different countries, and with the tax example, with the tax example that you brought, I've heard from different cultures that, it's too difficult, we just don't declare our taxes at all. So it would be beneficial for the state as well to make things efficient for the people, to give everything in order, right?
Well, state efficiency is very important, but again, I wanted to give it from the security perspective a value example. We all like to think, well, not we all, but many countries like to think that the train traffic is the critical service because if the trains don't move or they don't ride, then people can't get around. But in some countries, the ticketing system is way more important, because culturally, if you don't get a ticket, you won't step on the train, because that would be so wrong. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's very much depends. Some things which are funny for us in Estonia are totally understandable, logical in some other countries, and it's not only from distant places; it's all around Europe. There are different things what matter to people, and this is what we need to understand. So there are no solutions that are universal. Okay, everything that makes my life more simple and better is universal, but what is that? That's already a specific question for a culture or a country.
I find the Japanese example fascinating, because as I understand it, they didn't want to have a personal identification code because for cultural reasons. They didn't want to assign a number to a person, but that was fine because they have a system of stamps and they digitalize the stamps instead. It's a really interesting solution that works for their culture, and it's just really interesting to see how different countries can embrace it in a completely different way.
Oh, we had the luxury of the personal codes, which made things much super simple compared to. But this is the way how we look at the ecosystem nowadays. The question of integration of different IDs or identifications, unique identifications, shouldn't be as hard as it was 20 years ago. So if you can integrate, again, in a very secure and transparent way, the different identification, you can run on whatever you want.
I actually would like to hear your perspective as well. What's one British government service that you would like to go digital first?
I think I've talked about e-health. I think probably the health service going digital would be great. I know I've changed hospital or doctors quite a few times while living around different parts of the UK, and I can remember every time queuing up to fill out my details again and give my date of birth so many times to the government over and over again. I think health service going digital or incorporating digital identity could be really beneficial for both privacy and convenience. I'm also really a bit of a wildcard one, but I'm really interested in Companies House going digital, because that's like the business register. And I think it would make things so much easier for company owners and also bring a lot of transparency. There's been a lot of issues with kind of it not always being clear who owns companies, and sometimes someone can be in a Companies House across multiple companies with different variations of their same name, and it's difficult to tell kind of who's the owner of this company, where is it based. So I think Companies House incorporating digital ID could be really interesting for both transparency and convenience, and also bringing up things like e-Residency, offering opportunities like that. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how the debate keeps evolving. I think one thing that's clear is that Brits don't want to carry a physical card, and that should be fine. We're moving away from physical cards. I don't carry a physical card hardly at all, because I use mobile ID. And yeah, I guess it goes to something deeper, that it's not just about not wanting to carry the physical card, but also not wanting to be kind of arbitrarily stopped and asked to produce it. But then that's why you need the discussion to decide what are going to be the public rules. And that's why I hope everyone gets involved in that discussion about how digital ID, not digital ID card, should be governed in the UK.
Well, if the UK were to design its own digital identity, what do you think? What would make it distinctly British?
Yeah. I think most important thing is skip the cards and go straight for a mobile solution. I guess. I guess we'll see over time kind of how that debate evolves. But I think really we're only going to figure out a lot of this with usage, and trust is only going to come in with usage. So again, like with parking, like start small if needed and kind of phase it in so people can get used to using it. Because certainly once people start using the digital ID, as we've seen in Estonia, people don't want to get rid of it. They certainly don't want to replace it with the system that the UK currently has, where we have so many complicated workarounds to do very simple things. We use utility bills, we use all kind of cards and paper statements and stuff in order to prove who we are and where we live. And I think once people start to see how that can be phased out, that's when kind of trust comes in, and when actually we can have those deeper thoughts about how to do entirely new things, how we can bring new innovation in with it.
I think we've come to the point in Estonia whereas we don't even remember anymore how some things would run in the physical world.
Yeah.
And which makes, of course, ourselves very much demanding from ourselves that we should be even better. We should be even doing more digital, more automatization. But the true story is that for over a decade or more, we haven't had a chance to use physical services as a. Okay, there is always a way to do physically things as an alternative, but many haven't, and that's why we are now asking those dense questions from ourselves that what could we do even more. Now we have 100% of our services digital, so what's the next step? 110? So
Or just automating things, but
automation and optimization, these are the keywords definitely.
But it's interesting to hear this discussion from my perspective, because people like me who are in their early 30s, I don't know a life without a digital ID. So for young people like me, it's an elementary part of life, and not even imagining how you would have to go to get a physical paper prescription from a doctor, for example.
That's a good example.
Those things are just not comprehensible
still remember
for us.
those blue or greenish
papers,
and
I
the
think.
special printers they used, etc. And then you need to go around with that.
And sometimes I have to provide a wet signature, so it has to be. It can't just be a photocopy or whatever. And I have to print out a form, sign it, and then post it all the way to the UK. Just something that will take a split second in Estonia is such a long process, and have to pay to post it and stuff. Yeah.
There are surely some companies who would object to the digitalization, who would just lose their business because of.
Are there any last thoughts that you would like to add?
You can go first.
Well, I guess if you're in the UK and you want to see what it's like to have a digital ID, then apply for e-Residency. So I've been using my card for kind of I guess 15 years now, and I'm not a tech savvy person at all. When I first got my digital ID card, I didn't understand it. I put it away in a drawer. It took me a while to realize what I could actually do with it. Now, of course, I love it. So just apply for e-Residency, use an Estonian digital ID card, and see what opportunities you can open up from that.
Well, let's say I reiterate what I told. Digital is for the benefit of the people and the society, companies, everybody, and the technology is not going to vanish. So it's going to be more technology around us. So of course we need to be more aware. We need to understand that what value it brings. But in any case, we have to understand that on the governmental perspective. We shouldn't be doing digital just to digitalize physical process, but eventually to simplify different processes, to enable a better life, more simple, more beneficial life for our people and then companies and then the different groups in the society.
I sincerely thank you both for coming to this special episode and sharing your thoughts on this topic.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for inviting.
Thank you. And thank you for listeners as well.